In our last video segment, we talked about primary production in aquatic ecosystems, and now I want to talk about primary production in terrestrial ecosystems, that is land-based ecosystems. So what abiotic factors limit primary production in terrestrial ecosystems? Let's take a look at the map, and maybe that'll give us a sense of what is limiting primary production. So remember, this map shows net primary production, and the more black or purple is very low production, and then higher and higher production is light blue and green and yellow and orange and red. So notice where we see kind of bands of high primary production. So you probably guessed that temperature is an important factor that limits primary production. Right around the equator is where we typically see a high net primary production, and also especially if there's a lot of moisture. So temperature, moisture, the highest net primary production ecosystems would be tropical rainforests, and these would be lots of moisture and warm temperatures all year round. And then the third thing that's important would be nutrients, just like in aquatic ecosystems. So pause the video now and draw a graph predicting the relationship between net primary production and annual precipitation. And so what I'm looking for here, I'll get my pen ready, and what I'm looking for here is a graph. So you've got an X and a Y axis, and on the X axis you want to put the precipitation. That's supposed to say precip, and on the Y axis is where you want NPP. So pause the video now and draw what you would expect this graph to look like. What would be the relationship between NPP and annual precipitation? As precipitation increases, what do you think is going to happen with NPP? And so, did you have something like this with an increase in mean annual precipitation corresponding to an increase in net primary production? And notice that this kind of levels out. So once you get up above 120 centimeters of moisture per year, so 120 centimeters, so remember 100 centimeters is about a yard, so we're talking about 36 or more inches of rain per year. And once you get above like about 120, it kind of levels off. So some ecosystems have more than 200 or more centimeters of moisture per year. So that's the effect of moisture. Now, let's talk about nutrients. What nutrients are commonly limiting in terrestrial ecosystems? Well, similarly to aquatic ecosystems, nitrogen and phosphorus are the most common limiting nutrients in terrestrial ecosystems, which is why fertilizers tend to have nitrogen, phosphorus, and also potassium. But these two are the most common limiting reagents. And if you would choose just about any ecosystem on Earth, I could go out to a grassland, I could set aside a little little piece of that grassland, and if I poured on a little bit of nitrogen or a little bit of phosphorus, I would get greater growth of the plants. So what are some adaptations that we talked about in the last unit or the last couple of chapters? What are some adaptations that enable plants to increase their uptake of limiting nutrients? I will stop the video here and I will ask you to answer this question.